Hello, today I want to go over the proper procedure to creating and properly assigning follow-ups, and recalls are kind of treated the same way. So I just want to kind of make sure that the procedure is correct so that everybody that creates jobs and creates follow-ups, checks and completes, or whatever, are able to follow the right procedure to make sure that our reports are correctly when we monitor the technicians for 5140s, recalls, and stuff like that. So we're going to start with an incomplete call. This is just a test call under my name. This is an incomplete call like we would see, from any of the job dashboards or anything like that. So the way we usually mark it here is we're going to mark it complete, as either complete follow-up, um, and then what we're going to do is once it's marked, the very important thing is if it needs parts, the best thing to do right away is just to go ahead and click on edit. We want to mark this call. It doesn't matter when we mark it, but it has to be the original call. The original call has to be marked with the job source of 5140 parts needed. That's very important. We don't mark the second call. We mark the first call. This way, if a different technician, and this one wasn't assigned yet, but if a different technician is created the follow up, they're the ones that are getting penalized or tracked, not the guy that came back and completed the follow up because he technically had no fault in this matter. So we want to make sure that we mark it 5140 as parts needed. Again, doesn't really matter when this happens, at what point that this happens. So we're going to go ahead and save the job. Now this job is not created. This is still the original job. Then what we can do is we can either go into the job site, create a follow-up, copy everything. The way I like to do is I go to more. I do go ahead and copy job. What it'll do is it'll just create a brand new identical job. I'm going to go ahead and edit. Very important that this gets marked unmarked for 5140 if we had already marked it 5140 from the original call. By changing this job source does not affect the other call, the original call. And then what we do is now what we could do is we could put an F at the end of the follow up. We could cut these. We could cut this and then just put the way we do it now, which is follow up needed, and then we can put the uh, original notes, and then we can just copy that so that the technician knows. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go and mark it dispatch. We're going to go ahead and assign it to whoever we need to assign it. Say Justin, uh, or parts or wherever we're assigning it. That to me, it's not part of the procedure at this point. We just want to make sure that this has no source on it. We're adding the F to the PO so that kind of links the two together. So when we look it up, um, and then what we do is we go ahead and save job. And then if we go to this job source here, to the customer location, we should be able to see in the history. Now we have this call here, and then we have this follow-up call. So if we need to check in here, um, it'll obviously have the 5140. I know there's a time where we do um, follow-up needed here, and then this one goes completed. So whichever the procedure is that you're doing now, continue that. I just want to make sure that this is the important part, that the 5140 parts needed gets assigned to the original call. The second call that we created does not have that set, again, because we only wanted track that on the first guy, not the second guy. Most of the time it's the same person, but doesn't always have to be. So if it's a recall, it will be treated the same exact way. If it's a recall, we go in there, create a recall. Sometimes billing handles this, but I like to see us handling at the time of creating the call. We could either go into the original and then copy the job to create the recall, the same way I did it by going into more, copy job, or we could go to edit, um, and mark it a recall. So if for some reason this was called a recall after the fact, we would go into the original call, mark it a recall. Now what's important about these job sources is the reason they are numbered is because we always want to go by the highest level of importance. So recall is really at the highest importance. 5140s are parts needed. Usually these two will never ever have the same scenario won't play out in the same ones. A recall may have a 5140, but in a 5140 may be called a recall, but usually they're never one and the same. However, some of these will, some of these may apply a few of different ones. So, a call may be a 5140, it may not have an agreement, it may not have had a JMS serial number picture on it. Whichever it is, we always pick the highest number. That's why we number them. So the highest the number, the more important. So if a call is a 5140, but the technician did not add the parts for whatever reason, he used a part, didn't add it, but said we had to go back with a second part, 5140 would go in here instead of no parts added. Same thing with late paperwork or no agreement. Always pick the highest number, because that's to us when we run the reporting on the text. That's what we want to make sure that we capture the highest number on here. So some of these are a little bit less important. We always want to go with the highest number possible for this call. If any of these apply, always apply the highest number. That's it for now. We'll probably have more videos in the future for different areas. Thanks.